Hey, Rocky Fork, thanks for joining us today. We hope you'll stay connected with us by downloading our app and following along all the events we have going on.
Welcome to Use Your Gifts Sunday, with opportunities to become more involved with Rocky Fork and strengthen your relationship with Jesus Christ and each other. First, a little bit about myself. I'd like to share a little background. 41 years as a first responder, police officer, firefighter, paramedic, almost all in this community. 38 years with my wife, Joan. We have two daughters, Farley and Fiona, all are members here. We've been coming to Rocky Fork. We've been members for 12 years. And for the last 4 months, I've been going through the process of becoming an elder. And thank you, Charlie, what you said about becoming an elder, and you cried when you guys asked me to be an elder. I said, "Are you out of your mind?" Because a few years ago, there's no way I would have envisioned standing before you today as part of your leadership team, and I'm glad to, and I'm privileged to do so. So I'd like to share with you a short briefing on our own ongoing work in progress. I have good news to share this morning, and it includes difficult decisions we are making. There is no bad news. Rocky Fork is changing and growing. With change and growth comes challenges that can sometimes feel like we have stopped moving forward or we're even moving backwards. We can become frustrated when things we want don't immediately intersect with the things that we need, or they don't happen at a pace that we expect or would like. Our current staff, Chris Brandt, Jonathan Moyers, and Jana Buttram, have carried the weight of significant changes here that have been going on for several years. I ask you to join me in continuing to give them support, love, and appreciation for what they do, because they're working very hard for us. Our partnership with Effective Elders, E2, has been very constructive and is helping us to improve how we church, that's a verb, and find our new senior minister. For example, 35 of us participated in a seminar in this room on November 9th and 10th on that side of the building with Dr. Gary Johnson, the executive director of E2, and helped clarify our vision, mission, and values and how we continue to grow as a church in a constructive way. Our staff and elders at Rocky Fork have continued to conference with Gary several times. In fact, we've done so twice this week. Since October, and in addition to preaching, Dr. Billy Strother has helped us in many ways. I have spent countless hours one-on-one personally with him, as well as in conference, and I'm grateful for his insight and his counsel. He's been a great help. And guys, we are reminded that God is great, life is good, and people, all of us, people are messy. This past week, after some very candid conversations, Dr. Billy has resigned his position as our interim preacher, and the elders have accepted his resignation. We mutually agreed that we were not a good fit for one another. We all want what is best for the church, God's kingdom, and how we make and support disciples for Jesus. We're parting ways amicably. We're not seeking another interim pastor. We're going to use our local resources and which we already have. For example, Mark Buttram, Chris Brandt, Jonathan Moyers, people that have been guests here before, and people that we have thought about inviting to be a part of Rocky Fork as a guest speaker. That's how we're going to proceed. The good news is that God has selected a new senior minister for us, and we are actively searching to find him. Our national search went live over a week ago, and in over 15 main channels. We currently have about 30 applicants who've submitted from all over the country. My mailbox is receiving 2 to 3 applications every day. We continue to have full faith in our relationship with E2, and we remain strongly connected with them and eager to receive more input. I continue to be reminded that faith asks us to lean into God's plan and believe that His plan is the right one, even when it's not the same as our plan. As we continue to grow and move forward, we need all of our church family members to help whenever and wherever they can, to share your gifts, your time, and to honor and grow Christ and God's kingdom. You're about to hear more on Use Your Gifts. There's a need and an opportunity for everyone If you have an idea of what you would like to do, that's great. If you don't have a clue, let us offer some suggestions. Let me close with this. What if volunteer firefighters did not volunteer? What would our community look like? 12 years ago, I volunteered to lead our life safety ministry. 2 weeks ago, I volunteered to become one of your elders after a 4-month process. Please take the time to remain afterward, the tables on the sides, after you hear Mark's message, and discover how you can become a part of our service team, how you can serve, how you can join, how you can be a part of the team. In closing, I'd like to refer to 4 of my favorite passages in prayer. The first one, Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, one of us sharpens another. Let's hang out with good people. Second, Isaiah 6:8. I heard the voice of the Lord calling. Here I am, Lord. Send me. Step up. We all have a role to play. Titus 2:7. Let there be excellence and integrity in all that we do and teach. And finally, one of my favorites, Philippians 4:8, which I can't remember from memory, but it talks about whatever is true, noble, right, honorable, just, lovely, admirable, let us dwell on those things. Good morning, Rocky Fork.
So let me point out something about, we talk about using our gifts this morning, okay? And you've heard it from a couple different places and a couple different venues and ideas and perspectives, right? Why are you guys looking at Jonathan? I'm talking.
Amen.
I feel like a teacher.
It's because they know what's happening today, all right?
I feel like
They're
a
getting
teacher
hyped.
and like something's happening over here and I've lost you, right?
Just wandering. They already all witnessed me break a string on the very first song, and that, that gets chaos after that. So.
Yeah, welcome to ministry, right? Yeah. So, Jonathan, I was going to ask you, and we talked about this morning already. I said, Jonathan, I said, what's it like when you walk into a gym, and you're there for a pickup basketball game? Now, I haven't ever done this. Only Jonathan can answer this. Does it feel better that somebody picks you for the team or you volunteer to play for somebody's team?
Oh, listen, Jeff Hartman knows I walk in the gym, I'm open. Now, I'm not going to make any shots, but I'm open. So, obviously, getting picked for the team is way better. It's way better.
Right. Yeah, being picked for a team feels way better than having to volunteer, because usually people volunteer like, I don't know this guy's skills, right? Yeah. When we think about volunteering, a lot of people, be honest, you're in church, right? You've heard this before. Be honest. When you hear volunteer, there's a little bit of cringe, right? Like I'm not sure. That sounds great, but what are you asking me to do, right? I want to know what this entails, what's going to take place, and even if I'm a fit, right? So I think it's important that we understand that. When I was in the military, one of the first things the old-timers would tell us, right, the guys who had been there for a couple months, right, the experienced guys, they would say, whatever you do, don't volunteer, right? Because usually that meant like KP, you're gonna clean the kitchen, you're gonna clean the bathrooms, you're gonna be doing something you don't want to do.
Some of you that have been around here a long time, if you see a staff member walking at you like this, you take off out the door as fast as you can.
I've seen you do this, right? Or pull your phone out and go.
I'm just reading the scriptures.
I'm praying to Jesus in this moment that you'll go away. Sometimes we want to know what the opportunity is before we volunteer. We want to know what it entails, right? And that's fair. And I think that's what's really important about this morning is we have these tables set up where you can discover where our needs are and where we need you to fit, right? And where you can get plugged in at. There's another way of volunteering, right? And I learned this is where you really don't volunteer, but you get the job anyway. Do you know what that's called? Voluntold, yeah.
That is my entire 18 years growing up with a preacher as my dad, right? Everything we did was voluntold.
Voluntold. Yeah. And so we do that with our kids a lot, right? Like, who wants to clean their room up? And you see them scatter, and like, you shut the door, right? Like, no, we're going to clean the room up all together, right? So voluntold, but that doesn't feel very good. And when we think about being picked for a team, that feels better because we want to be part of the what's going on, knowing that I'm participating and also helping to accomplish the same goal, right?
Absolutely. We want to be part of a winning team.
Yeah,
We wanna be
exactly.
part of a winning team.
It's way better to be part of a winning team than a losing team. That's right. So let me just take a flashback just for a moment. Let's get into some scripture and be really quick about it. But I want to pull something out of it because it's really important for us to capture it. Let's go back in time just for a minute and zero in on a moment of Jesus' ministry, early in his ministry, where he's beginning to collect or to call his disciples to come follow him, right? And so Jesus is walking along the Sea of Galilee. He knows where he's going to find these 4 fishermen, and their names are going to be Peter and Andrew, John and James. You've heard them before. And these guys aren't just weekend fishermen. That's what they do. That's their living. It's how they make money. That's what their families have been doing this for years. Their fathers have been doing it. Their grandfathers, and who knows how many generations before them have been fishing, probably in much of the same ways. So when Jesus walks up to these guys, he's picking them to join his team. They have 0 rabbi skills. None of them have been to Bible college or have ever sat in a Sunday school, right? They have never served on a ministry team, and they've never followed a rabbi before. So this is all going to be new to them. And what's incredible to me is that not only did they do it, but they did it right away. Right? There's something about Jesus that inspires us to action. When we understand who he is and what he's come to do, right? That changes that calls us to action. It's not just believing in Jesus. It's faith in Jesus that calls us to move.
So let's read that. That's in Matthew 4. It's verses 18 through 22. So Matthew 4, 18 through 22 says this. It's on the screen if you want to follow along. Now, as Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Immediately, they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in the boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets. And he called them. Immediately, they left the boat and their father and followed him.
Yeah. So I want you to focus on a couple of phrases that Jesus uses. The words in red are really important. That, come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And I want you to notice that Jesus gives them 2 invitations. And this is very important. The first says, come and be my follower. That's the first one, right? And a lot of us have answered that. Come and follow me, and the promise is, I will change you. Come and follow me, and I will change you. Right? Not you change yourself, or you're going to get better at what you do. I'm going to make you rich, or all these things. I'm going to change you. Right? The realization that Jesus knows these guys, right? He knows they're fishermen. He knows everything about them, and he still wants them to follow him. Let me bring this home for us just for a minute, because I want us to kind of sit in the boat with them just for a minute, right? Jesus is calling you. He knows who you are. He knows where you've been. He knows what you've done. He knows your favorite sin. He knows what you do in the dark when you think nobody's watching. He knows the secrets that you have, and yet he still calls you and wants to change you. Do you see that? The second part of the invitation is that Jesus says, I will make you fishermen, that I will help you. I will change you so much that it will make a difference in the people around you. It's a call to ministry. He says, come follow me. He says, bring all your gifts, all your talents, all your experience, all the knowledge, all the dreams that you've ever had, your work ethic, and we'll use that, what God has given you already, to leverage growth to bring more people into relationship with my son. So Jonathan, as we kind of bounced back and forth earlier, I asked the question, who made the most influence in your life to use your gifts for God?
So some of you heard a little bit of my story before. I grew up a preacher's kid, so that voluntold thing was like every single Sunday. Brenda Seitz actually used to work for my dad long ago, and I don't know how many times you heard the phrase, go set up chairs in fellowship hall. Like I heard that so much. So I was sick of going to fellowship hall and setting up chairs, all right? Doing puppets at VBS, things like that. But all of that changed when I got to college and I didn't have to serve. Like my dad wouldn't tell me to go do anything. And so I ended up out in college in Denver, Colorado, and I wasn't doing anything. I could have cared less. My roommate made me go to church with him or he was going to kick me out. You guys have kind of heard some of that. Yeah. But as I got there, the secretary of the church, I remember her name is Jeannie Rhodes. I can picture her right now. She walked up to me one Sunday and she knew I played a little bit of guitar. And she said, we really need some help on guitar and we'd like you to play. Now I'm going to tell you, I was horrible guitar player right then, all right? But they took a chance on me. And I ended up playing in that praise team, and that was some of the first times I ever sang while playing guitar, was for that little church in an old movie theater in Colorado. I remember things happened, and I left that church. I ended up somewhere else, and I was kind of doing the same thing. I didn't want to serve again. I didn't want to do anything. And I was at a church that was really big, so you can just disappear. And I was at a campus, and I remember one person came up and said, hey, we really need help setting up couches for our college ministry. And I lived really far from this thing, so I was trying to get out of it, and they just wouldn't leave me alone. I was like, okay, fine. I'll come set up the stinking couches. So I remember I drove an hour to go help set up couches, and that night it happened to be that their guitar player didn't show up. And so I filled in. And actually, our whole praise team is modeled after that very church because of somebody asking me to set up some couches. So the point is, I was never influenced by anybody on the stage asking me to do anything. All right, all this spiel meant nothing to me. I've heard it a million times. It was because I went and I met somebody that did a ministry, and they invited me along with them. So the influence that was on me, it was not a preacher, it was not a minister, it was a person just saying, hey, can you come help? Can you come help? And it literally changed the course of my life, and that's what we don't know. It changes us. It changes us. So I asked the same question, Mark. Who influenced you to serve?
So when you were talking about the guitar, right, I was just thinking, I've got a guitar story, right? So
I don't know where this is going.
Exactly. So
we're full up, bud. We're full up.
Be very afraid, right? My grandson Arlo brings me this ukulele toy, right? And it's a guitar. It's got 4 strings on it. He hands it to me. And I know he wants me to play, so I start. And then he pulls it out of my hands. And I'm thinking, man, this was my quickest ministry.
That tryout ended quick, man.
My quick it never really launched. Yeah. So a lot of you know my story over in Warrensburg, Missouri, where I came to Christ, and I was an anomaly. I came to Christ, and I was like 37 years old, so kind of late to the ball game. Didn't go to church as a kid. Didn't grow up in church. Didn't know about all these things that Jonathan's talking about. So one day somebody comes up to me after I became a Christian. They said, "Hey, do you want to help serve communion?" And I said, "I don't know what that means, but yeah, I've seen it happen. I could probably try it." And I did that, and from there I went to working in tech and pushing the slides for the minister.
Hey, write that down, Eric. write that down real quick.
Yeah, Bob's wanting to trade positions already. After that, I went to helping coach softball, to maybe helping out a little bit with youth, and then from there I went to preaching, and eventually, not to scare you guys, but Bible college. So that's Yeah, different paths, but same reasons, right? Yeah, yeah,
All because somebody asked.
yeah, yeah. So, Jonathan, I know we've talked about some scripture. Let me read from Paul, the Apostle Paul. He writes in Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 through 24. He says this. He says, whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is from the Lord Christ you are serving.
Let me follow that up with 1 Corinthians 12, 4 through 7. There are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. When we serve, it's not so that we look good. It's
Right.
for Jesus,
Right.
It's for Jesus. So what does using our gifts look like?
Yes, so I think a lot of us are going to see that this morning as we're going to have opportunity to shop for ways or look at opportunities. How can I use my gifts and my talents that God has given me? And not everybody's going to have the same gifts, right? So don't all charge over and try to sign up for the worship team because it's not going to go well for you. I'm just telling you. I've heard some of you sing.
That might have been too far.
Too harsh? Okay, all right.
When Mark sat up here, I redirected the crowd mic this way. So
So there'll be opportunity to do that for you here soon. Discovering your gifts. Jonathan, I think you can tell us probably more about how to discover those. You want me to read the scripture first?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Each of you should use whatever gift you've received to serve others. This is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10. As faithful stewards of God's grace and its various forms, using our gifts to serve one another.
So if you grew up in the church, you've heard of like a spiritual gifts assessment, and you've kind of gone through that. But if you don't, you might not have any idea where to even start to use your gifts, right? And so we've talked about this before. On the QR code on the seat back in front of you will take you to our spiritual gifts assessment, and it's just kind of a starting point. It is not the end-all, be-all, okay? When I took that thing, it had nothing to do with music. All right, it had nothing to do with music. My gifts had nothing to do with music. But God had a spot for me anyway. It's just a place to start. And we would love as staff to go over that with you, kind of help you get an idea. We're going to be doing this ministry thing for a couple of weeks. So if today you're like, I ain't walking up to nobody's table. Take some time this week. Take the spiritual gifts assessment. And next week you kind of have an idea of where to start, okay? I encourage you to do that. It's on our app. You can check that out. So I encourage you, meet our ministry leaders. Meet our ministry leaders. That's a great spot to start, okay?
The ministry leads will be all around the tables here. On each one of the tables, there is a description of that ministry. Okay, so the ministry lead may be engaged with somebody else or talking to somebody else about how they can get plugged in, but you can pick up any one of those at those tables, the description of the things that this ministry does, and maybe ways that you can get plugged in. Here are some of the ministries I want to highlight that you can take a look at. Children's ministry, First Impressions, the Welcome Desk, Baptistry, like the accounting team, youth ministry, men's ministry, women's ministry, Comforting Foods. That's the one I like. Building and grounds, small group leaders, event planning, seniors ministry, the interchurch council, and worship. I said worship technology, so worship and worship tech. So these are the things you can do. So when we dismiss here in a few minutes, Jonathan will close this, please go visit these tables. Go visit these ministry leads. Find out where you can get plugged in and where you can use your gifts today.